Hey, welcome back to the Resolute Man Show. I am so glad I got him in the calendar. I got him on the show. Tim Harris from Country Financial, and it's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Pleasure to be here. I'm excited about the opportunity, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know that, I met you when you were in the lower ranks in the company, but still pretty good ranks.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was a manager for sure. Yeah.
yeah, when we were in Oregon together, and that was so fun. It's just been amazing to see somebody from the ground level of the company, insurance agent, working their way up in the company, and now you're at that executive level, and it's really incredible. And you've really been given the baton to help transform the company in such a thriving and vibrant direction that I personally believe in, knowing what I know. And so I know it's not easy. It's a big ship to turn and so forth. We'll talk a little bit about leadership, but
Yeah,
man, you're still smiling, and that's what matters.
it is. Joy comes from within, right? So even when you have lemonade, you got to make the lemons, and God gives you the grace to do it. So,
Yeah. And Country is a multi-billion dollar company, right?
yep, we're in the top 1,000. I think we're this year in the 600s organization, almost a $5 billion a year organization.
That's so great. One thing I appreciate about the company is they're not getting caught up in some of the things some corporations are getting caught up in that really is divisive in our culture. And you guys really are staying on, no, here's what we do. We're going to do it the best we possibly can. And we're going to treat our people well. And we're going to be welcoming of all people. And I just really admire that about the company and your leadership as well. But there's this thing, sometimes there's purpose, right? The importance of having purpose in our work, and then there's profits. It's hard to have purpose if people don't have jobs and if there's not a company, right? So profits are very important as well.
Matter.
And so
Yep.
how have you, I know you're such a purposeful person, but now you're in this executive level. I think profits always were important to you, otherwise you wouldn't succeed. But how do you look at the balance of purpose and profits?
I think number one, I'm very fortunate to work for an organization that would put people first. So I think that helps me in this process, especially in leadership. Our organization, our vision is to enrich lives in the communities that we serve. So even though we do insurance and financial services, we have this whole mantra of it's about the betterment of the community. And so, our purpose is to make people's lives better. These are the products that we offer to do that. In order to continue to do that and make help you make great decisions for your protection and your planning options for retirement, uh, we literally want to do it in a way that you is genuine. You trust the person that you work with. They obviously care about you as an individual, and our goal is to educate you and let you decide what's best for your family. And if that's to do business with us, great. We're going to probably make some profit on that.
Yeah,
And that's what keeps us the ball running so that we can continue to pay our people, continue to make a difference in society. The Bible says without vision people perish, right? So we have this vision that everybody gravitates toward, and as you enrich somebody's life, the insurance industry is a lot about gimmick and price.
mm,
It really is not. It takes that away, right? It's about relationship and how you care for somebody and make sure they're taken care of. And I think that's been a wonderful byproduct of kind of the history of the company, started by farmers in 1925, and
so
you know
cool.
that that whole kind of thing. We're celebrating our 100th anniversary as an organization next
Amazing.
year. So you got kind of this relationship, rural roots,
Yes.
and it's just continued to bear fruit for 100 years, which is kind of unheard of in society too, at some levels. And we just continue to just try to make a difference for people. And as a leadership for me, I try to make a difference for the people that are making a difference for our clients.
I've had firsthand glance at meeting a lot of your leaders and spending time with you and seeing your teams. I was at one of your national events,
Yeah.
and such a passion for people and service and truly building relationships. And that's what it's all about. You don't want to become a commodity. So there's a lot of business people listening in. You don't want your product just to be a commodity that can be switched for something else. And yeah, you might have your plus here and minus there, but really what makes the difference is the relationship. And from a corporate level, I've seen just amazing effort of infusing that within the company. Obviously, it's come from the bottom up too, because there's so many great people in the field in your organization that really are living that example of really truly helping people. And when the motivation is that, what happens?
Yeah, you succeed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always looked at it from the standpoint, if you help other people get what they want, you'll ultimately probably get what you want.
Yeah.
And if you're genuinely taking care of them and meeting their needs, it's just a natural byproduct that you become, successful in your community or known in your community or whatever you're looking for as a business person. If you take that, servant attitude towards somebody else and help them grow, your probably byproduct is going to be better reputation, better experiences, people that gravitate towards you because they were referred to you. And, so it just kind of lends itself that way.
One of the things back in my corporate experience, now I'm full-time ministry, I really learned a lesson of you can train people and training's good. Hey, don't get me wrong. We got to train people, right? And so you're elevating the skill of people, and there's always new things that people need to be trained on. And I know there's a path with you to be able to use new products. They need to get training. But one thing I learned is that it's more important to actually manage energy versus skill. That if there's a will, they'll find a way. But if there is no will, you could train people all you want, all day long till you're blue in the face. And you're like, what is going on? I'm investing all this money. I'm putting all this energy into training. But why is it not happening? Because if someone's will is in it, if their heart is not in it, the long term doesn't look vibrant. And so, what are some tips for other business owners or even people listening in, anybody, for that concept of where's your energy at and how do you manage your own energy and how are you approaching that from leadership?
Changing hearts and minds about something, if somebody doesn't believe in something, I'll give an example. If I'm selling a product that I don't believe in, I might be able to sell that for a while,
Yeah,
right? But long term, I'm not going to be satisfied. So if you become incongruent with your own persona if you're not a part of something that's either greater than yourself or a bigger picture item or is making a difference for somebody, or the organization as a whole. What Something has to be driving you as an individual, and if it's not, to your point, if it's not in your heart, and you don't like believe that in your core, you can do it for a while. You might be able to do it for a decade. Some people have probably.
yeah,
And it's a difference between, sometimes people say follow your passion, but you also got to pay your bills. You have these you have these two competing interests, right? But how do you marry the schematics of your passion with what you're doing to make a difference in the lives of everybody that you're working with, or being that impact person or servant to those individuals? If somebody's not responding though, as an individual or as a group, and you're doing that training, there's either something wrong holistically with the training, or there's something even bigger behind you that you haven't is a blind spot. You think you're doing the right thing, and if people aren't engaging or react, that's happened to me multiple times in my career where we've rolled out XYZ or we've done, this product or that, endorsement or whatever it might be, and then nobody offers it. Well, there's an incongruence there somehow. And then you have to really come back and be honest with yourself and
mm,
learn from those moments. Like, what could we have done better in that rollout? What could we have done better in our communications? What could we have done better in the design of whatever that might be that's not going like we thought it would?
I love
But you
that.
always have to be very reflective, because what happens a lot of people is they get defensive in the
Right.
corporate environment. And instead of really stepping back and being honest, yeah, that failed. I own it. How do I make it better next time? And just,
Yes.
I own it. It's me. It is what it
Introspection,
is. Yeah.
introspection, not
Yeah.
just going, oh, they're not doing it, but actually looking at how can we do better in deployment, explaining it, making it seamlessly work better, the technology aspects, all of these hard things, very hard.
Very
But
hard.
really looking at that and going, what can we learn from this? And at the same time, I want to speak to the person that may be with you guys running an agency or some small business out there in another company or their own business, is that sometimes our energy is low and all we're thinking about is these immediate things that we have around us. And I would just encourage anybody listening that's feeling that way, where, wow, I have something good, but I have all these other passions out there. And then they start thinking, wow, is there some other greener grass out there? Is there some other thing I could do? And my experience is if you have something that's working, that's serving the community, does good by people, and you once loved it, you're probably going to love it again. Probably what's happening is you just need to recalibrate. You need to get a day by yourself with a journal and no technology, no notifications, no nothing. Get just outside and visioneer with yourself and remind yourself of the why in what you're doing and just really
Yes.
thinking about crystallizing that and just remembering those moments where the service you provided made a massive difference on other people. And I think that everybody needs recalibrating because what happens too often, and it's unfortunate, is that people become shifty. They shift, they shift, they shift, they shift, and they never get the favor of momentum, which is where real success comes from over a long period of time. And that happens by finding something really solid and good, and then constantly reminding yourself of your why and reforming that sometimes and building something that lasts. And I love what you're doing because in a shifty world that we're living in now, you have something where people stay for a long time and build something enduring. And that really pays off financially, but also pays off on the feel good inside aspect of that. And I think anybody listening, whatever business you do, you could probably say that about yourself too. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think too many times, and I think it's something that happened probably over the last 2 decades. I've been with country for 30, almost 32 years, right? So this is, I started here right out of college and I'm still here. And part of it was because my values correlated, right? So that was a really, big moment for me. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, my values and this company's values, they line up. So I'm good. Nobody grew up and said, "Hey, I want to be an insurance agent." Right? You don't grow up. I was going to be an NFL quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So you have those moments, but what happens, it gets hard. And what you're describing there for me is I've seen multiple moments in my career where it was really hard.
Mhm.
COVID was
Oh,
really hard.
I
Still
bet.
hard on people, in my opinion. There's still people with side effects from COVID
Yes.
and lack of trust and lack of scenarios that happened in moments that are difficult that cause you to think that grass might be greener somewhere else. And you've spent 5 years, 10 years, 15, whatever the number is, going, this is my thing. And all of a sudden now it's not.
Mm.
And what you just said right there, I had an individual actually say it to me verbally in the last few months when I was down south in one of our states. And he's like, "Yeah, when you were rolling out our new strategy and our new compensation plans, I thought about leaving, and I sat down long and hard and really thought it through, and I decided to stay and buy in. And boy, am I glad I did."
Mm.
And when you have others that did choose to go do those, the grass must be greener. They're not changing over here, so I'm going to go do that. It's still work.
Yeah.
It's still, you still have to, go out and generate whatever revenue you're to build your business, to do your thing. And more than likely, it's harder than staying. I think
You know,
restarting or rebuilding a business, you've done it before, Isaac.
yes,
It's hard.
it is hard.
It's not easy. Like you described there, it's sustained diligence over a period of time is what leads normally to great success, in my
And high
opinion.
performance out of yourself comes from
And yep,
bringing meaning to the mundane because the mundane is the work, the hard every single day and the challenges
yeah,
and the unforeseen things, but bringing meaning to that. And that's that reminder of the why you're doing it. And
keeping that
if we don't
focus.
bring meaning to the mundane, those main mundane moments don't fire correctly with other people. And that's an accumulation of mediocrity that happens over time in somebody's business. And so I just want to encourage people that you really do. Every touch point you have with your customers, with your team, if you're leading teams, whatever it is, every touch point is accumulating in a direction. Is it going in a direction of fruitfulness and greater productivity and financial gain and serving more people? Or is it going in the way of over time a degradation? And you know what? If it's going this way, what ends up happening is circumstances happen and people actually fire themselves without having to say anything. And so
Yeah.
what we all have to do, whether you're a business owner or you're working for somebody, you end up firing yourself. And
Yeah.
so we got to be very careful. We've got to, where am I at in this? Am I on this going up or am I going down? Because if you're in something good, let's recalibrate and make it amazing. You know what? It's so important today to differentiate. Wouldn't you
Mm,
agree?
100%. Yep.
So differentiation is more about the human than your offering, right? You can have a differentiated offering, but let's just face it, with AI and all the change happening, the speed of technology, there's going to become potentially less and less differentiation in products. Anybody can make something. That's going to be the new reality in the future. But the real differentiation, I believe, we weren't even going to talk about this, but I love talking about this, is
Mm,
the humanity.
yeah.
And I think as we become a more connected world and technology speaking at us, what people are going to become starving for is what is human.
Yep.
That human handshake is going to become more meaningful than ever. So people that continue to do human-based things, connecting with human beings, I think is going to go up in demand
Yep.
as people get lonelier and lonelier and lonelier because they're only communicating through and with technology.
Yep.
What do you think?
Well, well, there's a recent article in the Wall Street Journal, "Loneliness of the American Workforce." Just last couple weeks came out, and when we all disbanded from the office and are working from home, to your
Yeah,
point, for some reason, culture is demeaning, is getting lower and lower and lower in organizations,
yeah,
and some organizations are already starting to see productivity slipping, right? So did we go too far? Did that pendulum go us over here? And convenience of working from home versus, to your point, relationship, connection, productivity, culture. I've always viewed my work life as a community in and of itself, and I want to be a part of it.
yes,
Some of these people I spend more time with than my own family. So it's like it's super important to be connected with those people. And if you, to your point, if you don't have connection and you're in a corporate environment, your likelihood of staying there is probably slim in the next 5 years.
yeah.
There'll be some other offer that comes to you on LinkedIn, and you're going to jump at it because you don't have a loyalty, a framework of success that you're all trying to strive for together. We're on video today, right? We're in different
Yeah.
states, and I think that's important. And we've had connection in the past,
Yeah.
which is why we're here together today, right?
Yes.
Um, so how do you maintain connection in a virtual environment world is going to even be more and more important. How do you bring people together that may be in different states? How do you bring your community together and do something special for others? There's so many give back programs normally in corporations, and in communities. Like, how do you do that? And your point, I completely agree with you. Everything's going to become a commodity. I can get it. Amazon can deliver it to me in 5 minutes. Sometimes it seems like in my house.
Yeah. So
But if
Tim, you're the
yeah,
differentiator. Anybody
you're
listening,
the
I'm
differentiator.
the
That's right.
differentiator. It's like
Right.
shaking hands. It's looking people in the eyes. How can I help people? And people are
Yep.
going to be so starving for that. And I think that what's real and authentic. And so if people keep doing things where that is the front and center, that is going to be a differentiation. A
Yep.
differentiation is how you interact with human beings on a real level. It can be even like this through stream, but how do you do that in a more the most human level you possibly can? And so everybody, working, running businesses and so forth, I just encourage you to be ahead of the curve and
Yep.
keep doing the human things. Hey, gents, maybe this fits you, maybe it doesn't. But one thing is true, misapplied ambition is costly and a thriving family is priceless. Let me ask you, are you successful? Yet feeling a growing defeat inside, perhaps a deep yearning for more, for what really matters. At what point in the journey did we decide to make silent agreements to put aside what matters most? Perhaps it's the old myth of once I accomplish this, then I'll focus on my callings, then I'll focus on my family and my faith. Well, too many men have traded real excellence for the deceiving picture culture pressures them to pursue. It's actually possible to have it all, but it must be redefined if you want real excellence. See, you have to be willing to stand against the wind of mediocrity pressing against you that most call normal, a mediocrity usually embraced by Christian circles around you too. See, almost all successful Christian men have found themselves suffocating from their own reality, even when many around them are calling them blessed. There is no success at the sacrifice of your faith, family, and callings in your life. So if you're interested in finding out how we can work together, if you want help, if you're serious about growth, go to resoluteman.com and schedule a call.
Yep. Keep using AI and technology to make you more efficient,
Yes.
but the human things are what's going to differentiate you, to your point.
And people are getting more scared of human things because the less we do something, the less likely they want to make a phone call, want to show up
Yep.
and actually talk to somebody and these things. And so we have
Yeah.
this upcoming generation like that. So we have to push against that. We don't want to become like that. Do we want our kids to become like that, where they're not communicating with humans? They're just
Right.
like becoming zombies with technology. That's not what any parent wants, right?
No,
But so many
no.
parents are allowing that to happen. Well, let's, even in the work world, let's not allow that to happen to people. Let's not allow it to happen to ourselves, because one, it's healthy, but two, it's actually a business differentiator that will be in high
Yep.
demand. So I think that's pretty cool. Hey, what are some of your leadership reflections? You know, we're living in unprecedented times. I think COVID kind of kicked off some big change in the world. COVID itself was unprecedented, just the nature of things closing down and all those things for companies, and navigating this. But you're steering, with the other leaders are steering as well, but you're steering something that is like the biggest cruise ship you could possibly imagine in terms of size compared to the rest of the boats. And, you know, turning something that big is harder. How are you leading change during unprecedented times that would relate to other business owners?
Some early mistakes that I made getting into this role, and lessons learned in some of these scenarios for me would be really probably around communication and how to effectively communicate change, how to navigate that change, and how to move people and change people's hearts and minds about change,
Yeah,
and give them hope. I think hope is not a strategy, but hope is one of those things we all need to gravitate onto, right? That we're going to be okay. So I'm gonna buy in. You almost can't over communicate. You think you say something one way, and if we all played the telephone game around the circle at some point in our childhood,
yeah,
and you say one thing about peanut butter, and by the time you get to the other side of the circle, it's marshmallows, right?
yeah.
I mean, it's like it doesn't make it. And so I guess that if there was any lesson, it would be over communicate, over communicate, over communicate, reinforce the why, explain how it's going to be a differentiator, explain how it's going to help the business model succeed in the future, because so many people don't hear the message the first time or sometimes the 10th time. And there's also kind of this hierarchy going on in organizations, right? You could be a small business owner, you're only going to talk to a few people. You may work for a big corporation and you may say something, it's got to get through 4 layers of leadership to get down to the end user. You have to have a strategy to communicate that effectively over time and consistently, and not be afraid of the 700th time you've talked to somebody about it. It's exhausting. I'm not going to
That's
lie.
it.
It's
That's it.
exhausting. I
Yeah.
toured the country talking about change. It's exhausting, but it's necessary.
It is necessary,
Um,
and a lot of leaders fail in that they start to get calloused when they have to repeat themselves in a messaging and so forth, and
yeah,
assume that people should just get it. And then when they start repeating it, it doesn't come across right. And so, yes, and I love the energy at which you were talking about that, because I can tell you're not. You're not the calloused leader. I mean, we all get there momentarily,
yeah.
but
I might have a day.
overall, but overall, you're not the calloused leader. And the ability to share something again on a silver platter like it's fresh and
Yeah,
without any angst behind it is a special thing that leaders need to do. And repetition is necessary, and it's proven. If you want to influence a culture, if you want to influence an initiative for it, if you want to initiate anything, repetition, a simple messaging repeated over a long period of time and infused in the language and so forth, people will rise up to that culture. People will rise up into that direction. Adoption will happen for some quick, some slower, and some dead last, but eventually we get there, or they
yeah,
exclude themselves. And that's okay, that's a good thing for the culture, actually. But
yeah.
I think that you said it dead on right there. That is so good. So I want to, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to ask you a time you rejected passivity and made all the difference, but not yet. I just wanted you to have that. All right. I always ask every guest that,
Okay. Okay.
because men are naturally passive. It's resolute man. That's part of what the
Mhm.
thing is. And so, it takes exertion to not be passive. So think about that. But I wanted to ask you, you know, when we're trying to grow something, you're in something that's very growth orientated. If somebody's in any kind of sales or something like that, growth is essential. If it's not growing, it is going the other direction. There is
Right.
no status quo, and I know you know that. Um, so, but sometimes, especially when you excel, and this is a leadership problem for people in the field that are excelling in anything and building something, is there's lids, and they start to believe those lids. And then if they stop growing, there's only one place for them to go, which is back down. And so, what's your message for people that feel a little bit stuck? They might be stuck at the highest level, but
Yeah.
how do you break through those lids in these unprecedented times? Let's just add that wrinkle into it.
I've really been thinking honestly a lot about it for the ultra high performer.
Yeah.
And what are those lids mean? You think of sports analogies. How hard is it to repeat as a champion, right? Because the journey was amazing and I won it, and now I got to do it again. Like how? Like I don't know if I want to put forth. I got a ring, so like I don't want to put forth that effort, and it's almost like a breakthrough for people. I'll give an example. So we have an individual in our organization, and I heard this from another person that was a mentor in that person's life. And so I won't use any names or anything like that, but he was worried about something that was happening. He's one of our best.
Yeah.
And he was worried about something happening in his life that was going to kind of put the lid on him for the year. And this person just kind of smacked him and just said, "So you're just going to limit your success based on what happened in this moment?" Well, no, of course not. Well, go find the new way through the storm to make it to the other side. It's almost like sometimes we just want to relax.
No.
And we have to what I would you kind of hit on this earlier when you talked about visioneering. I used to call it dream days. Where we relax is when we just go get away and we just think about where we want to go.
Mhm.
Because that meaning comes back to you, right? The whole thing comes back. So when that lid hits you, you've already got this other foundation coming. Or if it is hitting you and you're not remembering that, do you have somebody in your life, your spouse, a mentor, pastor, business? So who's in your life that you can always go gut check yourself with? Because I think that's critical too.
Yeah.
I think for every person, there has to be, if you got just yourself to make the decision or to get advice from, that's just not going to work long term probably for you. You're going to make a mistake. There's wisdom in numbers. There's wisdom in people who've had other experiences. There's wisdom with your spouse for sure. You've got to be talking through, or your business associates that you're partnering with, or whatever it might be, so you can really hash it out and not make decisions quickly, and then keep that end game. You talked about it, the why and the end game of where I'm going and how this is affecting my community and my family and my legacy. All of that just kind of comes into play, right? Um,
I gotta share the story with you. It just came in my
Please.
head, and this is so
Yeah.
great. I love what you're saying. I was in a sales organization in past, and I was managing Washington, Oregon. I had like 32 offices. Actually, before this, I had less because we didn't grow yet. But we were doing good. We were like top, 3% of the organizations in the company every single year. And I think I had my fifth baby on the way. And so I had a lot of little kids. And
Yeah.
so I was like, and then a lot of people doing what I was doing, they didn't have any kids. They had all the time in the world. They could work anytime. They could do everything they wanted to do, right? They didn't have to, be box it in so that you could be a good family guy. What was absolutely necessary for me to be an awesome dad and an awesome husband. I know that's important to you too, from knowing you personally. And so if those are important, well, then how do I grow to what's never ever been done before in the 70-year history of the company to new breakthrough levels? There seems to be some lids on the business. Like nobody's ever been able to go over this certain number, and someone gets there and they go like this and they go like this. There's this lid. There's this lid.
Yep.
And then I found myself going, you know what? It's okay, Isaac. you know what? You're doing great. You're making money. Everything's good. You don't have to break the lids because your family's more important. And then I got so mad at myself. I was like, what am I doing? I'm becoming like homogenized society. I'm becoming
Yeah,
normal. I don't want to be normal. Why
yeah,
can't, this great book, Good to Great, so it's totally outdated today, but
yeah.
Jim Collins talked about the genius of the and versus the tyranny of the or. And that quote came into my mind. I'm like,
Mm,
I'm adopting the tyranny of the or, which is there's no way to break through this. In our business, that was a $10 million lid that no one had even come in within $2 million of ever. And I'm like, 10 million. Well, how can it? And I shifted. Well, how can I believe in the genius of the and be the best father I can be the best husband I can be there for everything possible, and go to $10 million, what's never been done before. And as soon as that became possible, the hows over time started revealing themselves.
yeah,
And one of those hows, and I just want to encourage everybody, I know you're all about this, is growing.
yeah,
Even though I was very successful, had the gated home, beautiful property, all the things, right? Then none of that stuff matters. For me, it was about progress. And I think people listening, progress is important to them. If I'm not making progress, I feel stifled. And if I'm stifled, how am I going to be a great husband? How am I going to be a great father anyways? I need to live an integrated life. Excellence in every area was important. And the long story short is we went to 11 million.
yeah,
Uh, and I worked less than was before. But what did that mean? It mean my influence had to grow. I had to grow, and I had to become even better at building a team around me that cared, and doing some things a little differently than before. And even though I was successful, to not have pride get in the way and that defensiveness you mentioned earlier, but instead
mhm,
be receptive,
yep,
including. And I just want to encourage everybody listening that you don't want to believe in the tyranny of the or. You want to believe in the genius of the and, because progress is essential, not only for business, but it makes you a better husband. It makes you a better wife. It makes you a better father, a better mother. It's so important that we're making progress. What do you think?
yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree. I literally couldn't agree with you more. What's the biggest sports analogy for me is the Roger Bannister 4 minute mile, right?
Yes.
Nobody could run 4 minute mile until he broke it. Now, lots of people, I don't even know what the number is, hundreds, thousands, I don't even know, have broken the 4 minute mile.
Yeah.
So it's a self-imposed restriction that you're talking about. You literally have to break through that in your own mind, because then it's just dream it, believe it type stuff, right? So what you did there, once you broke through that moment, you had to find the other things you need to do to improve yourself to get to where you wanted to go. And that's what life is about, really, right? I mean, you we have to be improving ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
People listen to this podcast, they're spending time to maybe take one nugget away from this that might mean something in their lives, that they could actually flip the switch on, or make a change because of, or do differently because of. And that's what taking time for yourself and thinking about it, and really spending time in your planning process and thinking through obstacles and the giant slaying that you may have to do
Yeah.
to throw the rock at throw the rock at somebody's head to get through it, might
Yeah.
be your own, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you might
Yes.
need your own at the
Right
beginning,
here.
right here. Exactly. So I just couldn't agree with you more, Isaac. I mean, it's just a testament of character to look at your limitations and make a cognitive decision to change to be better, or
Yeah.
try to. We're not
Yes.
perfect. Progress over perfection, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We're never gonna be perfect. Something
That's
may
it.
go perfect for a while, may feel like it, but it's progress,
That's right.
right? It's progress.
All right, we're gonna finish with your story.
Okay.
All right, a time you rejected passivity, and it made all the difference in the world. And by the way, females do listen to the Resolute Man podcast, so I don't want to. We have actually a growing number, so includes
Great.
everybody. This includes
That's
everyone.
awesome.
But what's a time that made a difference on you or others around you that's notable?
I have two, but I'm only going to give one right now, and I'm going to
Yeah.
go back to the creation of the nonprofit that I work with and help co-found. So I look back at my young career, and I really felt it was all about me. And I had a moment in time where I realized that was not true. And a good friend of mine's son, um, unfortunately, was diagnosed with osteosarcoma cancer.
Mm.
And this kid was a huge Christian family. We were in church together. We were in small group together. We were serving in the youth group together. We were just doing life, right? Doing life. And at that moment in time, I wanted to be the CEO of Country Financial. I like, let's go. I'm on the corporate train. Let's go do that. And this young man was and I always try not to get emotional when I tell this story, but this young man was the sick little boy in our community that made everybody else well.
Mm.
What happened? His zest for life in his darkest hour, his care for others, his love for God, his how he communicated with other people, how he made a difference for the other kids in the children's hospital, just literally blew my mind.
Wow.
Changed my entire paradigm of I've got to do these things and take these steps and climb the corporate ladder and get more degrees and just continue down this journey of what do I need to do to be the man,
Mhm.
right? And unfortunately he passed away. Um, and it was one of these moments in time where we created I'm in sales. They wanted to build a playground in his honor, so well, we're going to build the biggest one that's ever lived, right? So it actually is on my old church property in Oregon. It's called Scotty's Playhouse, and it holds I think 185 kids at one time. It's indoors. It's free to the community. It's beautiful. But then we started a nonprofit because the outpouring was so big because this kid had made such a difference for other people through his own faith journey, basically as a 10 to 12-year-old boy dying.
Mm.
And the nonprofit is called the See You Later Foundation. But at that moment in time, I'm like, whoa, okay, my priorities are all wrong. I need to invest in people. I need to grow my community. I need to take care of others. I don't need to be the CEO. Maybe I don't even want to be the CEO anymore. I just know I need to live life differently instead of what you would think. I've had some early success. I'm climbing the corporate ladder. And I rejected for probably 15 years, like I'm not moving. The point in my life where I just needed to stop thinking about how I'm going to be successful and let my work speak for itself.
Mm.
How I'm impacting other people speak for itself. And if that led to something that God wanted me to do later on, like great, as opportunities came, my wife and I talked about them. They were no's for the most part, and finally there became a yes, which got me into the current role that I'm in today. And that in my mind was perfect timing, and God aligned all of that right in my mind. So I look at it as I think there's so much emphasis on success and how I'm going to be successful and what do I need to do and who do I need to politic with and who do I whatever versus what we've kind of been talking about, thinking about how I can just be better. How can I be better in my role? How can I be better as a husband? How can I be better as a father or a wife or a mother, a person in my community? How can I make a difference for the people that either report to me or are in my life and help them get to their fulfillment of their journey, which I always, the whole karma thing is really real from the standpoint of how they're going to come around and help you too. And humility is a big thing to me.
Mm.
And pride, where people dig in, is a really hard thing for me. And really assessing moments where you need to step back and be humble and not dig in a moment where you think you're right
Mm.
really is a rejection of what would normally happen in a corporate environment or society as a whole. Like I was wrong, but I'm never going to admit that. I couldn't do it. And people who can do that and really be honest with themselves and honest with their peer group or other leaders or their community or their spouse, that I think that makes a difference. I think it makes a dramatic difference. And obviously I have it in my faith, but I also learned it from an 11-year-old boy.
That's so powerful.
I was right there. So
That's so powerful. I
yeah.
so appreciate you sharing the heart of that. And I hope everybody listening takes the baton on that and goes, you know what? It's not about your track. It's not about you. It's about being surrendered to a greater purpose.
Yep.
And I think that out of that, our best comes out.
Right.
because we're not striving in our own strength. We're not striving for what's mine, but we're open to serving for what's best. And what's best
Yep.
will happen to us. So I think that's a great story, great example. Hey, um, you know, at your level, there's no real place probably to point people to except the main website, right? But is there anywhere
Yeah.
you point people?
Well, so two things. SeeYouLater.org is my co-founded nonprofit, inspires youth and encourages families in the Northwest. And then obviously I work for Country Financial. Countryfinancial.com is our website. We're a great company to do business with, and love to take care of you on all fronts. So.
Well, if somebody wants to find out about it, by the way, I endorse Country Financial, absolutely. How does that work?
Yeah, so if you hit the website, there's all kinds of, just like everybody else's website, there's all kinds of different options. In the Northwest, from a nonprofit, there's volunteer options, there's giving options, there's opportunities to make a difference for families in medical crisis and kids going to camps and college scholarships and all kinds of wonderful things going on out in Oregon and Washington. Country Financial, we're in 19 states, so you might have a listener in a state that we're not in. So, I just encourage you, if it's something that you feel like you're lost a little bit in your insurance and your retirement planning, get on countryfinancial.com. Look, see if we're in one of your states, and if we are, we have amazing agents and advisors that would just love to sit down with you and find out what your needs are, educate you on your options, and let you decide what's best for you and your family. So.
They really are great people. Wherever Country Financial people are, they're smiling, they're servant-hearted, and they have your best interests in mind. And so I encourage you to take a look if you're in need. Hey, thanks for coming on the show, Tim.
Hey, my pleasure, Isaac. Glad we made it happen.